Yes, still continuing with the kingdoms of the intercaspian region, we now move to a very unique kingdom in the west of Uganda, and that was Ankole Kingdom. Ankole Kingdom, we shall begin by looking at the origins of this greater kingdom of Ankole. And we are going to be told that it is one of the kingdoms that made ancient Bunyoro. What does that one mean? It was originally part of Bunyoro. And therefore its rise is basically from the Bunyoro tradition. So it was originally part of Bunyoro. And that's something to put in consideration, that ancient Bunyoro was even encompassing Greater Ankole. It was a breakaway unit of the Chwezi. What does that one mean? That upon the arrival of the Luo invaders, that this was the last nail in the coffin of the Luo, of the Chwezi, the arrival of the Luo. The history tells us it was a final blow to the existence of the Chwezi kingdom, or the Chwezi empire, or the Chwezi dynasty. So, from the arrival of the Luo, the Chwezi left, and it is the Chwezi who could have led to the establishment or the foundation of the Greater Ankole Kingdom. Yes, because of the founder, founded by Ruhinda. And Ruhinda, who was a descendant of the what? Of the Chwezi. So we can see Ruhinda from the Chwezi dynasty fled. He fled the invasion of the Luo, and as he was fleeing, only to give rise to Ankole Kingdom. That was the history. Ruhinda therefore established the Hinda dynasty. He established the Hinda dynasty. This is the one that ruled in Ankole. It was called the Hinda dynasty as a result of his name, Ruhinda. It was called the Hinda dynasty, and we are told it ruled up to 1967. It ruled in Ankole up to 1967. But what happened in 1967 when Obote abolished the kingdoms? It is in 1967 that Obote abolished kingdoms. Yes, and of course it gave a blow to the empire, the kingdom of Ankole. The abolition of kingdoms was as a result of conflicts in Uganda. That was between 1966 to 67. That was called the Kabaka Crisis of 1966, where Obote, after assuming power through a coalition government between the UPC and the Kabaka Yeka, those two greater parties, UPC and KY, they made an alliance, which alliance finally led the country to independence in 1962. But upon coming to power, Obote now developed conflicts with the reigning president, that was Kabaka Mutesa II, who was now the president. And Obote was the prime minister, because that was the agreement they made when they were forming this coalition government. So at the end of the day, they conflicted because the Kabaka, who was the president, realized that the prime minister, who was Obote, was having more powers than himself, the president. So that's where the beginning of the conflicts arose. And finally, the continued conflicts led to a crisis where there was confusion, total confusion in Uganda, And of course, Obote being in control of the army, he had to do what? To force the Kabaka out of power or of the throne of presidency, because he used the boys in uniform, the army, to chase the Kabaka who fled into exile. Yes, he fled into exile. And because of that, Obote now had the power to do anything he wanted. One, he abolished kingdoms. Two, he made himself president in 1967. Three, abolished the post of prime minister. No more, because it was him who was occupying it. So now that he's president, no more. Then he ensured that he changed, as if changing is not the best word to use. He amended the constitution of 1966, and then he brought a new one, enacted another one, promulgated, those are the terms used in constitutionalism, promulgated the 1967 Republican Constitution, which now made Uganda a republic. So we have got that history of how Obote abolished kingdoms. So that's when the Hinda dynasty that had been established by Ruhinda came to an end immediately after Obote abolished kingdoms. The kingdoms was established in southwest part of Uganda by location. Buganda was in central, but this one was southwest part of Uganda, and it was around the 15th century. What is common with this century is the time of Luo arrival, and it is because of the Luo arrival we say that Ruhinda and his people left Bunyoro under the Chwezi, who had now lost their control, and only to found another kingdom called Ankole. So that was the period of establishment around the 15th century. Originally known as Karunji, that was the origin, the original name. The original name of Nkore was Karunji, meaning a peaceful country. So there was no trouble in this region. Everything that was known there was peace. It was peace and only peace. That's why it was called a good word, a good village, or Karunji, meaning a peaceful country. There was no trouble in that. That was the original name of Nkore. It was a small area, very small, tiny. Like we looked at Buganda, small nucleus, very tiny. And it was made up of only one county, Rwampara. Yes, only one. Unlike Uganda, which was composed of three, Chadondo, Maukota, and Busiro. So, only one, and that is the present day Rwampara County. The small county today called Rwampara is what made the entire kingdom. But now, how did it become bigger? Between the 15th to 19th century, it remained small, very small and insignificant. It was very small and insignificant. Those are the words. Why? Because it was growing at a slow rate. The rate at which the kingdom was growing was very slow. And of course, which can be explained by the next point. It can be explained by the next point. Started expanding around the 18th century. So the growth was now made speedy. The speed now was increased. And who increased the speed at which the empire was growing? The rise of ambitious kings. It was the rise of ambitious kings. The kings with the greater ambition to develop this kingdom to greater heights, and the kings were known as Abagabe. Yes, Abagabe. One Umugabe, and two Abagabe. So because of the rise of ambitious Abagabes or kings, the growth was more and more speeded up, and the kingdom now started expanding in all directions. Yes, the growth now started moving in all directions. Yes, north, south, east, west, and it finally became a bigger what? Empire. And the credit to the ambitious kings who ensured that it becomes a larger polity. The people of the area were called Nkore. The people were called Nkore. And they were very proud. The people in this kingdom were called Nkore, and they were very proud people. They were very proud of their kingdom, and they were called Nkore. Nkore, who were very proud people, and they loved their kingdom. They were classified under the upper class of the Nkore, which was a class of the pastoralists. It formed what they called the cattle keepers, Okurunda. They were good at keeping animals, and that one also increased their pride because of the owning of very many animals. The animals made them develop pride. But it was not only the upper class that existed, there was also the lower class of the Bairu, the lower class of the Abairu, which formed the lower class, and who were basically peasants. They were basically peasants. So you can see the social pyramid. The social pyramid with the upper class being the Hima class, upper. Then you look at the lower class on the pyramid of the society being the peasants, those who were always on farms, carrying out cultivation of crops, and they were Abairu. And because of the existence of this social stratification, there was always some despise. Yes, these two were always despising each other. There was a lot of despise, and especially of the upper class on the what? On the lower. We shall see that one when we come to organization. We find that the upper class monopolized everything, including politics. So the Bairu were not happy. So that one caused some rifts in the Nkore society. They spoke a similar language. And that language was called Nkore or Nkore. Those were the two. That was the language that they spoke. You better call it Nkore or Nkore. A very nice language, which even increased a lot of pride. It increased on their pride, and they even enjoyed speaking it. They could not hide, and it also acted as a unifier. Yes, it acted as a unifier because of the language spoken in Nkore. They were always proud, and they spoke that language which unified them. By the 19th century, the empire had reached the apex, the highest point. It had reached the highest point. They call it the zenith. In empire building, it was called the zenith. So the zenith of the Nkore kingdom was achieved in the 19th century, when more ambitious Abagabes or kings, more ambitious Abagabe, or the kings as they were known in Nkore society, had emerged on the throne. But like all other kingdoms, it had come to an end. Like all other kingdoms, it has come to an end. When did it come to an end? It was by the 20th century, the kingdom was no more. And this one can be explained by both internal and external factors, which we shall see at some point. So, meaning the empire which had started very well under Ruhinda in the 15th century after the demise of the Chwez dynasty had by the 20th century come to an end.